Greetings, Sentinels fans! Today it is time to talk about one of the greats of Sentinel Comics' heroes. Let's talk about Haka. One of the few things I could never get over is how things change. There is always something new and exciting, even after 600 years of living on this earth. It didn't seem that way at first, at the Maori tribe in what is now New Zealand. This was before the European contact. I was the strongest warrior there, and had the responsibilities of a chieftain. Yes, I was Ata Wakawarera, but I was also Ata Ariki, Ata the chief. I led my tribe for years. We endured famine, drought, and foreign invader. I kept my people safe, in peace and in war. They were my family, my friends. However, one day my tamoko, the tattoos that I had placed on my face as I came to adulthood, faded and vanished. We were shocked. This had never happened before. This frightened my people, and before long, those people I had protected for years turned on me. They believed me cursed. My chief advisor, Ruru, took it upon himself to remove the rot before it got worse. He fought me and defeated me. He dragged my beaten and exhausted body out of the village, took his Paumanu greenstone knife, and slit my throat. To this day, I still feel that blade. I still feel my blood gushing out of my neck. I still feel death reach out for me. But it didn't take me. You can imagine my surprise when I woke up the next morning. My neck was sealed. It still hurt, but it wasn't leaking my lifeblood. In fact, I felt invigorated. I felt stronger than I was that previous day. I returned to my village and demanded a rematch from Ruru. This time, he couldn't beat me. I slammed him to the ground and basked in my victory. I looked over the village, looked over my people, and only saw fear. In hindsight, seeing a man come back from the dead might frighten anyone. Still, it hurt, being rejected by them. It wasn't enough to reapply my tamoko. I had to leave. I never saw any of them again. So I wandered. I moved through the world and moved through the ages, whatever power that was granted me, preventing me from aging. My protective instinct never changed, though. I would find a new community, assist them in any way I can, then move on. My assistance would take the form of sage advice, hard labor, or fighting monstrous threats. In more recent years, I've been a substitute teacher. Some of those visits were brief, others protracted. I have faced down many monsters, though there is always a new one, as the battle is always unending. But I also make countless friends. I form bonds where I go, and as the decades and centuries pass, I keep their memories alive. But I always leave eventually. There is no home for me. Either I simply don't belong, somewhere else needs my help, or worse, my presence brings greater danger to the people. There seems to be a frustrating tendency for people to test themselves against the strongest entity they can find. And many of those types don't seem to care who they hurt on the way. And that was my life. Centuries of life spent helping where I can and collecting and preserving all the stories I can. I traveled the globe and saw many things, many wonders that I have never even dreamed of. I went to the Americas and met heroes. It was oddly gratifying to find other people who had innate power like myself. There were others who were on my level. I've yet to find anyone who has lived as long as I have, but at least I could count myself among equals. It put a slight damper on my worldview, though. I had always thought that power was tied to mana, the supernatural essence that was the combination of authority, honor, prowess, victories, the things that make a legend. It very well might still be, in my case. But it became clear that power stems from a variety of places. Sciences of all types, magics both familiar and forms unknown to my people. energies of all kind. I saw kindred spirits in these people. And as such, I happily joined them in their struggles to help people. And they have even helped me. I have been a frequent ally of the Freedom Five. Paul often invites me to their cookouts. It was the Prime Wardens that seem especially notable. The five of us, me, Anthony, Elena, Mick, and Hugh. We joined together after Anthony called for aid. We fought many threats together. Or, we did. Until I messed things up. We were never really a team, just a collection of co-workers that I tried desperately to keep together. As long as I lived, and considering my lifespan that means a lot, they would be a great force for good. We all did our own thing, but we came together to face the threats of mankind, or Marekind, or Thorathkind, or whatever the case may be. To explain my mistake, I will back up a bit. First, during a fight with the Court of Blood, I separated from my friends in order to speak with the vampires alone. I found Bathory, and we came to an agreement. Vampires would stop preying on people in exchange for regular visits from me so I can donate my blood to them. I figured it was the better option. It's not like I can run out of blood. Having my throat opened up and my blood gush from my wound overnight was not enough to kill me. So what harm was there? I can provide plenty of blood for the vampires, and they will not need to prey upon people. Later, I was shown that such an arrangement simply gave the vampires access to very powerful blood, thus making them a bigger threat, and that they had designs on the world that went beyond simple survival. If I consulted someone, we might have found a better solution, but I didn't. The other thing was that I let Filter blackmail me into helping them without realizing it. Long ago, they found the location of the Meridian Refuge and were going to wipe it out. I got to them and tried to stop them. They offered a deal. They would leave the refuge alone as long as I kept them informed as to the activities of the Prime Wardens. Yes, I was a Filter spy. I didn't want to be, but it just happened. I thought I might control them, mitigate them, but I was in over my head. I wasn't able to stop them from kidnapping Argent Adept, nor could I stop them from eliminating the Meridian Gene-bound prisoners. I let my friends down, and would have continued to do so, until Apostate came in and showed them all my weakness. He showed Elena my deal with the Blood Countess, and showed Anthony, Hugh, and Mick my arrangement with Filter. He tore us apart, not with his sword, but with his words. Prime Wardens. You think yourselves great heroes, bastions of good in a strange and unforgiving world. You think yourselves friends, but you betray each other in hundreds of tiny ways. Anthony, you bring together these heroes to help you out, and then when they need you, you have other things to do. Or you refuse to include your friends in your battles. When you are needed, they will never know if you will be there, or if you will be off in another place. You have such power to boost up your teammates, and yet you cannot be relied upon. Do you even trust these people? Because they certainly do not trust you. Barrister Hugh Lowsley. For someone whose whole business is solving people's problems, you're really bad at facing your own. You have been gifted with so much power, and you have no problem punching a bad guy. But the second anything enters your personal life, suddenly you have somewhere else to be. If you took your problem seriously, you would have found your brother years ago. So, really, everyone who he kills has you and your cowardice to thank. Mick Dalton. You claim you are there for the people of Earth, and you think you have been integrated into the societies of the planet, but the instant that any Meridian asks for help crossing the road, you will happily let your friends die to help them out. You don't really care about this new home. So why are you even here? Maybe you should take that rage you feel and focus on your own people, as obviously you don't really want to assist these humans. Your teammates are human, not Marinian, and as such, your people will never be at the forefront of their minds. Your people need you. They don't need them. Elena, you and I have spoken many times, and you never learn. You see yourself as an angel, and yet you desire to be human. However, you are so single-minded that you are not capable of doing both. Do you help people, or do you smite the bad guy? You help the people, and the bad guy gets away. But smite the villain, and you hurt the people you were trying to protect. Really, you need to get off the fence, and choose what you are. The saint who heals the weak, or the fist of God who smites the evil. Otherwise, you will fail at doing both. And finally, there is you. Ata Waka whatever. You thought you could be the linchpin holding this group together, but you have undermined them better than I ever could have. Your arrogance in thinking you know better than these people has led to this. 600 years of life and this is the best you could do? Good job. I am sure your tribe would be proud. Now run back to Filter or the Blood Countess, like the good little dog that you are. All hail the savage Haka. And you know, I usually have to lie to get results this good. But here, the truth has been much more effective. So long, Prime Wardens. At this point, we were done. We defeated Apostate, but he still won. We could no longer face each other. We couldn't remain a team. We went our separate ways. I was once again alone. I was back to wandering and reflecting. We each had a role in the Prime Wardens' dissolution, but it was my mistakes that made it impossible to repair. So when the team was ready to return, ready to accept each other again, it could not be initiated by me. We would return as a team, better and stronger, but that is not my story to tell. You should talk to Mick for that one. And then there was Progeny, and the singular entity. While Anthony held back Progeny, we investigated as best as we could, and discovered the singular entity, Oblivion. We knew that we were in for a big fight. We needed to prepare. I helped where I could, and I could certainly fight. But what we needed were allies. So I took the job to go into the Mist Gates and find others who could join in the fight against Oblivion. We met with many people from many universes. We even brought over another version of me, a woman named Arataki. But there are more people to bring, so into another gate I go. And now Wait, did the gate just close behind me? Oh boy. So I explored, and it seemed that this world I entered is not doing very good. My friends seemed to be meaner, scarier, crueler, even though this universe seemed to stem directly from my own. What happened here to make things like this? The world is doomed, and I don't know what to do.
Maybe you would consider an offer.
What?
You may or may not know me as Yansa Videra, the Terminarch of the Enclave of the Endlings, the last Feruciad, and now the prime aspect of preservation.
Hello, everyone. I am Arataki Wakawarera, also known as Haka. It seems that I am stuck in this reality, at least for the time being. So, I will make the most of it. I have joined up with heroes from this universe, the Prime Wardens. This may be a universe, but my calling is still the same. There are people to protect, and I will do what I can. And now we step away from the narrative of the video, and go into a few anecdotes about this character. You will note I decided to continue following Ata Haka into the Vertex/Miststorm timeline. This was the first time I did this, because the RPG has a new Haka, and I wanted to bring a conclusion to Ata that wasn't just he disappeared into a mist portal when Voss closed off the main timeline. Also, Haka was not really involved in Vertex, only showing up around the end, so I felt this was fine. As for Arataki, we don't have much lore on her yet, so that bit is kinda short. Hopefully we will see what she is like further down the line. Now there is one big thing pertaining to Haka that he would not be aware of, the origin of his powers. He would be under the assumption that he had inadvertently found a way to absorb and use mana, causing his strength, resistance, and healing to grow. I'm not an expert, but I think mana is similar to chi. You know, life essence with a bit of metaphysical stuff added in, but not necessarily magical in of itself. And as a strong warrior and a chief, Atta would have a lot of mana. This would be the explanation that would make sense to him, considering his culture. However, mana, ki, chi, quintessence, all that stuff isn't really expanded upon much in Sentinels lore. I'm sure Fixer does some chi stuff, maybe Zhulong, but the closest we get to stuff about life essence would be stuff surrounding blood magic, which I don't think is what's happening here. Instead, we get into the La Commodora explanation. While Maria Elena was doing her Doctor Who thing across the multiverse, she decided to create a powerful warrior to help in the fight against Oblivion. So she took essentially the same person in two different universes, Atta and Arataki, and linked them together, so that they are constantly sustaining each other. Meaning that it is impossible for one of them to die while the other yet lives. They would have to die at the same time in order for it to stick, and them being in different universes would make that difficult to arrange. Now why Commodora only did this once is anyone's guess. Yeah, I know she was probably, like, fixing up a paradox, but she could have did this more than once. Now the disparate Hakas are able to die, though they are still difficult to kill in their own right. And it is my understanding, and to be clear, I'm not entirely certain about this, that when those Hakas do die, their essence and strength is absorbed into one or both of the main Hakas. And of course, with the infinite and ever-expanding nature of the multiverse, they are not going to run out of Hakas anytime soon. Now with this understanding, I do note that Haka isn't constantly getting bulkier and whatnot. So I wonder if most of the energy is spent, you know, keeping the two Hakas from aging. But that's about as far as I'm going to go into headcanon space, at least for now. Haka is one of those characters who appear very simple on the surface. Big muscle guy who smash things. It is certainly the big exposure we get in the card game, as the card game is about fighting bad guys and seldom about the hero's home lives. Haka's character, though, brings a lot of wisdom and wholesomeness. He loves hearing stories, he's a teacher, he loves baking. He doesn't really have a temper, and he'd rather solve problems with words instead of fighting. He's probably one of the best characters in terms of morality. I imagine that conflicts with Haka are very rare, but very notable. And of course, there is Haka's immortality. A lot of stories involving immortals, if their immortality is ever really discussed, tend to fall at the line of immortality not being a good time. Losing loved ones, being forgotten, your heritage fading away, not being able to connect with newer people, lack of new experiences, all that jazz. But I like Haka as a subversion of that. He's a character that still clearly enjoys life, even after centuries of living. Yeah, he's lost friends and loved ones, but he still forms new friendships. He still involves himself in the protection of people. As a person who might be a bit thanatophobic, I like seeing this kind of character. It's the kind of character that says, even after so long, life is still worth living. It is wonderful to see a character with this kind of vitality and joy for life. One last thing, a bit related to the immortality. I don't know if it was ever directly said by C&A at any point, but I think Haka might consider himself a living memory of humanity. It is said over and over that Haka loves to hear stories from people, and will always talk about the person instead of talking about himself. Yeah, admitting that kinda breaks the narrative of this video, but what can you do? He still wears the trappings of his culture, wearing the clothes, using the weapons, even reapplying his Tomoko with snake venom in order to prevent it from healing away. And all this centuries after that culture had abandoned him. When he isn't protecting people, he chooses to be a substitute teacher. Eternal Haka, which I didn't really go into in this video, chooses to collect books and protect a library even after humanity is gone. And when he ended up in Vertex, he ended up joining Yansa Videro, the aspect of preservation. So he probably considers it his responsibility to gather up as much memory of humanity as he can get, and preserve it if it ever comes to that point. Anyways, this seems like a bit of a long one, so I hope you enjoyed it. Take care, friends. Alright, room got a bit of a remodeling. Not that you'll notice, but it's sort of like a minor point that I brought up in my Killmonger Marvel musings. If there is a way to get a ton of really powerful warriors like this, why not do it a whole bunch? This is Sorry, there's a crow that's distracting me. Damn it, Lillian. Even after so long, life is still worth living. This is a very deep topic to go into for this silly superhero board game.